What's going on, everybody? It is Sunday night, which means this is the night shift for Monday, August 6th, and you've got Josh Engelman instead of Jake Hari. I love doing these every Sunday night. It gives me a little fresh look at the upcoming slate. I had a really good Sunday afternoon slate, so I'm ready to play for Monday. I'm going to take a look at a couple of the stacks that I have at the top of my rankings for right now, heading into tomorrow, and then I'll take a little bit of a peek at some of the pitching. Interesting slate of pitching, two high-priced options, and then a lot to like in the mid-tier. So starting it off, number one team, both sites, going to be the Mariners. Yeah, I know. I didn't expect that either. Mariners have a date with the Rangers and Martin Perez, so you're naturally going to have exposure pretty heavily here. Total is already at Mariners 5.4. They're slight favorites. The Rangers are at 5.2. It's the, let's see, third. That's a word. It's the third highest implied total of the day. On FanDuel, I'd be very surprised if they fell out of this top spot for me. They're not the most cost-efficient stack on DK, but they're at the top. But for FanDuel, just crazy bargains in the projected lineup right now. Whether that's Gordon, Segura, Haniger, Cruz, Kyle Seager, Healy, Zunino. Those first seven guys are grading out really nicely. I wish Zunino mattered a little bit more on FanDuel, but at 2,100, I'm fine having even just like not the best hitting catcher as part of a stack. Healy, first base option, 2,300, bargain. Kyle Seager, third base option, 2,600. You're getting the lefty there too, so I think that Seager could be a nice part of a Mariners stack on both sites if you need to get a little different if they end up being super chalky. I'd say Nelson Cruz is probably the best play of anyone on the Mariners, and that's on both sites. 3,900 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DraftKings. Just grading out really well. I hate prioritizing outfielders, but I think Cruz is in an incredible spot. Not that everybody doesn't already know that. He's been nuking left-handed pitching for a decade plus. I don't expect it to stop here, especially in Texas against Martin Perez. So, yeah, Mariners are first, both sites. Then we've got a flip-flop 2 and 3. Same teams, but we've got the Cubs, which are third on DraftKings, second on FanDuel, and then the Yankees, second on DraftKings, third on FanDuel. So I'll take a quick look at the Cubs first. Cubs 5.3 run implied total right now against the Royals. This game is in Kansas City. Royals have a 3.8. It's pretty sizable favorites there for Chicago. Cole Hamels is going for Chicago. Jake Junis going for Kansas City. By all accounts, I'm going to be all over the Cubs, especially if this total stays north of 5. We'll need to pay attention to it, but I see no reason why this line would go any closer to Junis. So as long as the runs are expected, I'm going to be all over the Cubs. And the first 6 guys are really looking like the best options, depending on the site. Like I said, Cubs are second on FanDuel. Anthony Rizzo leading off against Junis, 3,900 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. He's a guy that I'll be having pretty heavy exposure to. I don't totally love Ben Zobrist's price on DraftKings. He's 4,700. It's not the most cost-efficient play, but the dual eligibility second base outfield will help a lot. It does allow you to mix and match a little bit more. So I think that can keep Zobrist's ownership up a little bit. If he was just a single position, it would be kind of tough because he's overpriced for what he puts out. I kind of feel a similar way for Baez, 5,500. That's a big-time price tag. But again, you get dual eligibility second and short. He'll probably be one of my most owned players tomorrow just because of the positional scarcity and because of how much I like the Cubs. I can see him coming up a lot in parts of Cubs stacks and in as a one-off on FanDuel if I happen to have Hamels, or even as a one-off on DraftKings because I'll be running a 5-2-1 tomorrow. Yeah, I'm mostly focused on those first 6 though. Wilson Contreras on DK is fine. I don't generally care too much about what's going on at catcher. I usually want my catcher to be a part of the stack. just makes it a little bit cleaner. Most hitters or most catchers aren't really the best hitters. Wilson Contreras is a bit of an exception to this point, but if there's going to be a lot of runs, I just want that catcher. I don't necessarily care too much about his hitting profile. Contreras, doubles as a good hitter as well, even just in general. So I'm happy to have Contreras. I just don't love the $4,100 price point. It's pretty easy to load up on Cubs. Jake June has not been the best lately, so happy to grab these guys, especially the lefties, Rizzo, Hayward, Schwarber. Then bouncing over to the Yanks, we've got 5.6 run implied total. That's the second highest on the slate behind the Rockies and Coors. Yanks have Lance Lynn going. They're 65% chance to win. Dylan Covey going for the White Sox. So, that's a pretty obvious reason to be all over the Yanks. Whether that's Brett Gardner leading off. Really nice salary on FanDuel, $3,400. Perfectly fine on DK as well, $4,500. Stanton, I don't really need to say all that much. It's Stanton, one of my highest individual projections of the day. I'd be shocked if I didn't have him a ton as a one-off. He's exactly what you're looking for, especially in the bandbox in Chicago. Then bouncing around, I probably like Greg Bird the most out of everybody else. Lefty on righty, $3,100 on FanDuel, $3,900 on DK. I think that's a pretty good price point. Yankees, a little bit more cost efficient on FanDuel, but they fit a little bit better on DK positionally. It's kind of weird. I don't think I'll have much Neil Walker if he's hitting ninth, but if he can move up the order a little bit, that would help. I'd say if I was looking at a particular stack in this game, it would start with Stanton. I would definitely have Greg Bird. And then you kind of are free to go, whether you wanted to go like Hicks Gregorius or, Torres Gregorius and save some outfield bats for other spots. But I think the first two guys that I would want to use for the Yankees would be Stanton and Greg Bird. Greg Bird for the price and Stanton for the just absolute pure upside. Nobody has power like he does. Like Greg Bird has power, and Stanton's steamer ISO is 100 points higher than Bird's. It's just really crazy to think about. Like Daniel Palka has power. Jose Abreu has power. Giancarlo Stanton has 100 points higher of ISO. The chances of him, I assume he's number one in my home run model, but I can check it out quick. Yeah, Stanton clearly at the top of my home run model. A little bit ahead of Mike Trout. And three guys that I mentioned already for the Cubs. Rizzo at third, Schwarber at fifth, and Baez at eighth. Cubby's looking like a very popular home run option tomorrow. So those are my top three stacks. No real outliers otherwise. The Angels come in fourth, straight across the board, both sites. And then the Rockies are fifth for me on DK. Cardinals are fifth for me on FanDuel. I'm guessing the Rockies will probably be a little popular, but I think I prefer other stacks. So I do hope they get a little juice. Coors doesn't look to be super duper appealing. Joe Musgrove is going for Pittsburgh tomorrow. Kyle Freeland is going for Colorado. I'm a fan of Musgrove. We'll see how his stuff plays in Colorado, but I kind of want to be away from the crazy chalk of the Rockies if that ends up happening. Just spitballing now. Tune into the show with me and Jake in the morning, and we'll be able to take a little bit closer of a look. So those are my stacks. Now it's time to talk pitching. And pitching is, well, it's pitching. Two clear options at the top. It's Trevor Bauer. He's 11.5 on FanDuel. He is 12.3 on DK. And he has the highest projection for me. He has the highest odds of being a top scoring pitcher on FanDuel or the top 2 scoring pitcher on DK. But I don't expect to get to him a lot. And a lot of that has to do with the price point of everybody else, particularly Noah Syndergaard. Syndergaard is 9,400 on FanDuel, 96 on DK. As of right now, he has the exact same chances. He's basically a half percentage point behind Bauer of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. But he's got a 7% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, whereas Bauer basically has no chance to do that at that price point. All the while saving $2,700. I'll have way more Syndergaard than I will Bauer. And I think I'll probably have a little bit more Charlie Morton as well. But that could go either way depending on how the line moves. Now, he's a step below Syndergaard. He has much lower ceiling. But Cole Hamels at 9,000 on DK and 8,500 on FanDuel. He's another guy that I'm going to have a healthy helping of. I won't be on Derek Rodriguez at all. His pricing is crazy. But I'm expecting Syndergaard and Hamels to be my two most owned pitchers in that tier. And I would expect those two to be the two most owned pitchers for the public as well. If we want to walk down a little bit further, I don't normally get on Zach Godley, but his numbers are looking pretty good, especially at an $8,700 price point. Godley's got a date with the Phillies. Phillies only a 4-run implied total. I think that looks pretty nice. Godley, 15% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher, 5% on value. So a little similar to Cole Hamels, a couple $100 cheaper. So Godley's a guy I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. I won't be touching Kyle Gibson at all. I'll have a little bit of Jake Arrieta, but I won't be proud of it. Arrieta is a guy that comes up a lot better on my model than he does generally in the public. So it wouldn't shock me when ownership drops in the morning if I'm over the field on Arrieta. And then if we're looking for a couple more value plays, I'm really excited for this one. There's a gentleman named Luke Weaver who I seem to take every single week. 7,000 on FanDuel, 7,200 on DK. He did not have a great start his most recent time out, and I had a bunch of him. Not the best scenario, but it's got a date with the Marlins. Marlins 3.8 run implied total, super low. I'm certainly willing to take a run at Luke Weaver at that price to be a value pitcher. I think he pairs really nicely with a Syndergaard or a Hamels. Allows you to spend whatever you want on bats, whether that's the Yankees stack that I mentioned, the Cubs stack that I mentioned. Even the Rockies are going to be pretty pricey tomorrow. Indians, if you wanted to go there. Being able to get those cheaper pitchers, not a bad look. So I like Weaver. I like Lance Lynn, $100 less than him. Very comparable. And then I think Nick Tropiano is probably my only other value. I don't know if anybody heard those pauses. Dog was whining outside, freaked me out a little bit, so apologies for that. But yeah, I think Nick Tropiano is going to be a decent value, and I didn't expect that. I'm not the biggest Tropiano guy, but 59% chance to win. Tigers with a 3.8 run implied total. I think he's going to be pretty popular at 6,200. I mean, all of these guys at the bottom are like super decent values. Well, let me redefine the bottom. I don't have a ton of interest in Covey. I'll probably look at Wee and Chen because I always do. But I won't be happy about that. I might need to take a look at his innings projection. He's projecting to be a clear value. But at 4,300, that'll get you there. Joe Musgrove, it makes me a little nervous going into Coors, but I wouldn't mind having a lineup or two there. Ultimately, lots of pitchers going tomorrow that I think are probably underpriced. So I'm expecting Syndergaard to oh my God, I can't. If I have 45% Syndergaard tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked. I'll go upwards of 50 tomorrow on a pitcher on DK, and it wouldn't shock me if Syndergaard was slamming against that. I guess I didn't touch on his matchup at all. Syndergaard has a date with the Reds. Reds 3.3 run implied total is the lowest of the entire slate. So they strike out at a relatively average rate, but there's a lot of swing and miss in Hamilton, Tucker. Suarez strikes out quite a bit, but Syndergaard's got the stuff to transcend that. So I want to have overwhelming amounts of Syndergaard. That's basically it. That's a little quick overview of the Monday slate, Monday, August 6th. Tune in the morning. Myself and Jake will break this down on a game-by-game basis. We'll have spotlight hitters, pitchers, and stacks out super early in the morning. We'll have quick hits out in the afternoon. And then it'll be myself and Chris Spags for the live stream. So check all that stuff out. Subscribe on iTunes. I assume you're already listening to this on iTunes, but if you're listening to it on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, subscribe everywhere. This is Josh Engelman, and I'm out.